I think a lot of coaches would have walked into the press conference last night and I think would have really blown up. And there were a couple of really tough calls against the Warriors. But, he didn't use it any sort of excuse. I thought they were really brave, Kempy. They've been fantastic. I mean, traditionally that game in the last, certainly the last 5-6 seasons has been completely dominated by the Melbourne Storm. And, we anticipated it to be a close game. What was going for the Melbourne Storm? Melbourne had a big, long layoff after what was a poor performance against Manly. So I knew they were going to be on their game and really up for it. And the fact that the Warriors, in my opinion, were really unlucky last night just shows the quality of the football that they're playing. There was the one with Remus Smith and knock on for the try for Nick Meaney. I thought in particular, I thought that was a really tough call.
Yeah, 6 hands in and around the ball, and you thought the bunker would have at least said, "Well, I can't make my mind up. That's a no try." Mate, Matty, I've got a text. I'm going to go straight to the text machine here because I've got one from Doug. He says, "Can you ask Matty if he feels that the Warriors are getting a fair go by the officials?"
Look, Kempy, I thought last night. I thought last night they didn't get the rub of the green. But I think all in all, look. I know there is the traditional rivalry, Australia versus New Zealand, but Kempy, everyone I speak to here, they're wrapped in the Warriors, and they're so happy for the Warriors to be going well. Given the sacrifices that the club has had to make in the previous few seasons during COVID, and I think rugby league people probably selfishly know that you need a strong Warriors in the competition. And so I don't think there's any bias against the Warriors. I actually think it's the opposite. But of course, sometimes you've got human error. You've got that officiating where things are going to happen. There's going to be some tough calls. You get the rub of the green some weeks, and other times it goes against you. But no, Kempy, I think there's a lot of goodwill towards the Warriors. I don't think there's any conspiracies there at all.
Matty, it's Surly here. I thought the injection of Nelson Asafa-Solomona off the bench was a real turning point last night in that game. What do you think he brings to that Storm pack? Just his aggression, his ball carrying. He was very hard for our forward pack to handle.
Oh, look, he's hard for anyone to handle. It's just the size of the guy. There's a few times he's just impossible to handle one-on-one. And Kempy was a playmaker. He knows he'd be a playmaker's dream on the edge because you don't have to be too clever. All you got to do is get in one-on-one with someone, and they just can't handle him. Yeah, he had a huge impact in the game, and of course he's re-signed with the Storm. I mean, the audacity of the Wallabies were saying that they wanted to pinch him. They're making all sorts of comments over here, the Wallabies. Fair income, unbelievable. But as Brandon Smith said, you're going to need more than Joseph Swaliti to beat the All Blacks, and I support that.
Mate, well, who wins a scrap, Matty, between a wallaby and a kangaroo?
Oh, kangaroo, of course. A kangaroo is a tough working-class person. The wallaby, I don't know. The wallaby wears one of those tweed coats with leather patches on it.
Hey, mate, just talking about the game last night, where you're sitting there at the back end of it, and unfortunately for the Warriors, they lost their bench, and you could smell the likes of Harry Grant, Munster, and Jerome Hughes going, mate, the middle is absolutely for the taking here.
Yeah, well, I was sitting watching it with my young bloke Cooper. We were sitting watching it on the couch, and he picked it. Where they flashed at Tohu, who was on the sideline, a couple of all the injuries, and he said, "Mate, Harry's going to cut this game open in the last 15, 20 minutes," and that's what happened. I went to the Anzac Day game at Allianz yesterday before the Warriors and the Storm game, and I was in the nosebleed seats. I mean, treating them, they don't look after me there. I was up, honestly, I was like a kite. I was that high up in the stadium, but I was overlooking the game, and it really gave a great perspective of where the game has gone and where the space is. All the space is just through the middle. And the moment an opposition side is fatigued, the middle defenders just can't sustain pressure upon pressure upon pressure. Particularly when you got Munster made that great run through the middle, and then you got Harry Grant and of course Jerome jumping about. it was just too much for the Warriors. They just ran out of gas. And then on top of that, when you're chasing points and you're tired and you're under constant attack from a side like Melbourne, you're right up against it. But they hung in there. That's the great thing. Like Sean Johnson in the game last night, and I was talking to Coops, I said, it's amazing. I'm seeing Sean Johnson do things at this point of his career that he didn't do in his prime. Like, they put a kick in last night and he chased it down and, put a great shot on Nick Meaney. Just his leadership. He was outstanding. Aidan Fanua-Blake. Blake, he had discipline issues when he was at Manly, but he's gone to the Warriors. This season in particular, he's gone from being just, one part of 13. He's a leader. He's been fantastic. So they were really good last night. I know that all the side would be disappointed not getting the 2 points. Get that. But, there's continues to be good signs for the Warriors.
Yeah, speaking of some of those signs, I think a lot have been made of our poor starts to games throughout the season, but for the first 20 or 30 minutes there before the injuries struck havoc, I thought we looked really good. Did that kind of confirm to you that we're definitely a top 8 contender this year?
Oh, definitely. And the thing that impresses me sometimes with the Warriors, as you said before, is they've got a style of football that they hold their nerve with. Like when you get off to a slow start sometimes, if you haven't got trust in exactly what you're doing, suddenly you lose your nerve and you start to play away from that. Where the Warriors, at times this season, they've had slow starts, but they've just stuck to the script. And they don't try to do anything fancy. They just work away, kick well, chase hard, pour energy into their defence, and they work their way back into the contest. So that's testimony to the coach and the trust in the game plan. I reckon that's a better sign than getting off to a good start last night, even against Melbourne Storm, and getting run down.
Yeah, the thing with Webby, mate, is that he's owned this coaching role, you know what I mean? He's come out, he hasn't said, oh, look, I'm building a side, I'm actually going to go out here and we're competing and we're going to win games, which he's done in this early part of the season. He's under, I guess, immense pressure this week because of the loss of Tohu Harris, and you've got Jazz Tavaga out. It looks like Dylan Walker's got to face the judiciary. Up against the Sydney City Roosters side on Sunday, what do you think they need to do? Because you saw they looked like they were going to towel up St George in the game beforehand, and then St George come back and just about got them at the death. What do you think they need to do to win that game?
Kempy, they've got to tighten their middle right up. If I was playing against the Roosters this week, is that I would compress the defence and invite the Roosters to go sideways. The Roosters have a natural tendency at the moment to want to push the ball towards the edges, and when they do that, they're far less a threat. If you open up your middle against the Roosters, you've got to deal with Brandon Smith, you've got to deal with Manu, and you've got to deal with Tedesco. And they're going to slice you open. And the Roosters last night, when they kept the ball in the middle and just worked away through the centre of the football field, they just made breaks at will. They look so dangerous with their short passing, but they have a want to go sideways. So if I was Andrew Webster, I'd be inviting that. I'll be showing them plenty of space on the edge.
Matty, a couple of texters here have asked that they want us to ask you if they think the NRL has done right by the Warriors. Obviously, we sacrificed a lot away on the road for the past 3 years. It seems like we've been on the road a lot to start the season compared to sides like the Broncos. Do you think the NRL has done enough to kind of make up for that absence? And how good would it be to see an Anzac game played at Mount Smart in the future?
I think that the Warriors deserved that game yesterday. I was actually, which I might make mention of this sort of the back end of the interview, is 2 days ago I was at an old teammate of Kempy and I's funeral, a fella called Adrian Bubb, and might have been Mark Sargent, one of the boys said to me that, we're talking about having a chat about the Warriors, and I said I'd chat to Kempy, most weeks, and one of the boys said, mate, do you think that the Warriors probably deserve what they, what they've gone through the previous season, almost having every home game in New Zealand? And mate, it's hard to argue with. Given the sacrifices, it wouldn't hurt for the, for the other 16 clubs to say, yeah, okay, they did this, they were away from their loved ones for so long, well, then why not? But definitely, I was. When you think about that, last night, I think that they absolutely deserve an Anzac Day game. I think it'd be fitting.
Hey, Matty, just on the back of, the competitions and the way that it started this year, you had to just look at the ladder, and you've got such a congested ladder. What do you make of the competition this year? And I was just talking to Surly beforehand that the World Cup it looks like to me has had a definite effect on the form and some of the durability, some of the players. What's your thoughts?
Kempy, I totally agree. It's had a big impact. If you look back at the NRL competition back in our era, the seasons that threw up weird results were on the back of the Kangaroo Tour. It was the Kangaroo Tour, the Australian Kangaroo Tour, to go over the UK and France. It'd be 3 months, and players would come back, the star players, basically have no pre-season. Oftentimes, I remember once Freddie Fittler came back, and might have been in season 1991. He came back and he was about 14 kilos overweight, Freddie. But that was sort of like, it just threw up weird results because of that. That all the top teams had such a large representation. And I think it's the same this year. There certainly has been. There's been so many players. When you look at the emergence of Tonga and Samoa, there's been just so many players in the NRL go away and play in that World Cup. It has thrown up some strange ones. What do I make about the competition, Kempy, is that I don't see... I see about the same amount of absolute elite teams, the top ones. But I reckon, Kempy, at the end of the season, I think the difference between the team that finishes 5th and the side that finishes 15th won't be much. I think it might end up being, 2 or 3 tight losses. I think there's a lot more teams. I think there's a lot more mid-level teams in the competition this year.
Yeah.
State of Origin's fast approaching, mate. It's just around the corner, and obviously there's a lot of players putting their hands up to get back into those representative jerseys. Do you have any smokies for us, or what do you think? Is Nico Hines partnering Nathan Cleary in the halves? What do you expect?
Yeah, I'd have Nico Hines in the 6. I think he's earned it. Like Jerome and Nathan and Isaiah Yeo have got a great combination, but incumbency's important, but I think it carries a lot more merit when you're coming off a winning series. That hasn't been the case. Nico Hines has earned his opportunity. I think he should go in. I'd be, as far as if they go with Nico Hines in 6, I'd be going with Cody Walker in 14. That combination that Cody has with Damien Cook, Cam Murray and Latrell Mitchell. It's going to be a really strong side. Tom Trbojevic, there's a lot of... Look, if I'm Freddie, I go to Tom Trbojevic. I don't worry about the doctors. I just say, mate, are you fit? Are you able to play at 100%? If he says yes, that's enough for me. I'd actually play Tom Trbojevic on the wing. I think wingers in the modern game have bigger impact than the centres. I'd be using him on a kick return in tandem with Tedesco and Toto. And then the centres, I'd go Latrell Mitchell and Campbell Graham. So, New South Wales, we've got a very, very strong side. So, predictably, Queensland will beat us 2-1.
From Auckland to Ashburton, Wellington to Waitangi, Hamilton to Hokitika, you're listening to SENZ.